Damon! It's Mr. Damon, and I am so glad that you and I get to spend time together because you are literally one of the coolest people on the face of the planet. There is only one you. And I am so glad that we get to be friends. Well, today I am also very excited for our story. So let's go to the Bible because the Bible is one of the best places for us to learn about who Jesus is. And we have been learning that every single story in the Bible is actually about Jesus. They all point us to him. So let's go to Ruth chapter 1, and it says this. But Ruth said, "Don't force me to leave you. Don't make me go home. Where you go, I go. And where you live, I'll live. Your people are my people. Your God is my God. Where you die, I'll die. And that's where I'll be buried. So help me God. Not even death itself is going to come between us." Whoa, that is an intense speech. And we're going to find out about who said it and why in just a moment. But we've got one more verse we need to look at. Because in Deuteronomy 31:8, it says, God is running ahead of you. He's right there with you. He won't let you down. He won't leave you. Don't be intimidated. Don't worry. I feel better already. Isn't it amazing? Just listening to the promises that God makes to us does something to our heart. Doesn't it? Well, church kids. I think you know what time it is. It's time for the question of the week. And here's the question of the week. Have you ever thought that you were lost or alone? Church kids, have you ever been in a situation where you thought you were lost and alone? How does it make you feel? Oh yeah, so nice. Like warm fuzzies. No, it makes you feel horrible. I remember one time when I was in high school, I was a part of something called Search and Rescue, where you get to go out into the woods and help find lost people. Well, we were out in the woods, and for a moment, I told the rest of my team, hey, I've got to go over there and check something out. So I went, looked on my map, thought I knew where I was at, and I ran off into the woods. Oh, a little ways, not too far. But there was a moment when I stopped, and there I was, in the middle of the forest, the deep forest, up in the mountains, and I couldn't hear anybody. And all of a sudden, I got this feeling that came over me, you are alone. And then I started to get scared, and I was like, oh no, I'm out here in the woods all by myself, and there's gonna be like, ninjas are gonna attack me, or maybe dragons, or like terrible evil carrot people are gonna come out of the ground and like, ah! And I started to panic, church kids. Here I am, a high schooler. Yeah, I'm big and tough. And I was like, ah! Why? Because the moment I thought I was alone, fear came into my heart and I started to worry. And so what did I do? I started yelling and I was like, guys! And all of a sudden, after I started yelling, I could hear pretty clearly from not too far away, all of my friends went, yeah, we're right here. And I was like, relief. It's like, so when I thought I was alone, was I really? No. The people from my team were literally like 10 feet that other direction. Well, church kids, that story, it's a good picture of how we feel sometimes in life. And that there are days when we can feel like we're all alone. We can feel like terrible things are gonna happen, and we feel scared and worried. But then we remember that Jesus has made you and me a promise that he is never gonna leave us. He's always there, right there with us, and he is going to take care of us. We've been learning that in the Bible, from the story of Adam and Eve at the very beginning, to Abraham, to Moses, to Joshua, all throughout the Bible, that every single story in the Bible points us to Jesus. And today, we are gonna learn about a very important woman named Ruth. Everybody say, Ruth. 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 The story is about a woman named Ruth. And the scene opens up in about 1300 BC. Church kids, that's about 3,300 years ago. That's when Ruth was alive. But our story opens up in the country of Israel, which is located right along the Mediterranean Sea, and it's still there today, on a husband and wife named Naomi and Elimelech. And Naomi and Elimelech were happily married, living in Israel. Everything was great, until it wasn't, because a famine broke out in Israel. Now, a famine is when it doesn't rain for so long that all the vegetables and all the wheat and all the crops die. We're dead. And there's no more food. And so Naomi looks at Elimelech and she's like, hey, Chipotle is all out of their burritos. There's no more guacamole. There's no food left anywhere. We gotta leave. And he's like, okay. So they packed up their camel and they left and they took off to another country called Moab. Now, when they got to Moab, there was no famine there. So it was great. There was still guacamole at the Chipotles. So they're happy. Now, Naomi and Elimelech had brought with them their 2 adult sons. So now they're eating their Chipotle. It's great. Both of their sons meet 2 women from Moab. One woman's name was Orpah, and that's kind of a hard name to say, and the second one was Ruth. And then they got married. So both of their sons now have wives, and Naomi, she has 2 great daughter-in-laws. Life is great. Until tragedy struck again. Bum, bum, bum! And Elimelech died. And then, church kids, it got even worse. Because shortly after their dad died, both of Naomi's sons died. Ooh, it's terrible. And then the famine that had been in Israel moved to where? You got it, to Moab. So things went from bad to worse for Naomi. Until finally, one day, Naomi had it. She looks at her 2 daughter-in-laws, Orpah and Ruth, and she says, listen, you can go back home. I got nothing left to offer you. I'm headed back to Israel because I hear the famine's done and there's bread available and the guacamole is back at Chipotle. I'm leaving and you guys can go live your lives. See you later. And she kissed both of her daughter-in-laws and Orpah turned around and went home. But Ruth didn't. The Bible says she actually grabbed hold of her mother-in-law and this is what she said. She said, don't force me to leave you. Don't make me go home. Where you go, I go. Where you live, I live. Your people are my people. And listen to this, church kids. Your God is my God. Why would Ruth say that? Because before she met Naomi and Elimelech, Ruth didn't know the one true God. And while they were together, Naomi began to tell her daughter-in-laws about Jesus, about God. And the more that Ruth listened, the more God's love began to fill her heart. And for the first time in her life, she knew with God, she was at home. And so Ruth did. She refused to leave Naomi. The 2 of them made the trek back to Israel. And there, church kids, God used Ruth's strength to take care of Naomi. And then God orchestrated for Ruth to meet a man named Boaz. And the 2 of them got married. And the story that seemed terrible, it seemed like they were all alone, that nothing could go worse, that God had abandoned them. Church kids, God was with them the whole time. God brought Naomi and Elimelech to Moab to meet Ruth. God caused Naomi to share his love with Ruth. She gives her heart to God. And then God takes care of them. He brings Ruth and Boaz together. And church kids, listen to this. Ruth and Boaz have a son. And then do you know who their 14th great-grandson was? 14 generations, like great. It was Jesus himself. You see, church kids, God was with Ruth the whole time. God brought Ruth into his family. And do you know that God makes that same promise to you and to me? That he is never going to leave us alone. He's never going to forsake us. In Deuteronomy, listen to God's promise to you. He says, I am running ahead of you. God is right there with you. He won't let you down. He won't leave you. So don't be intimidated and don't worry. Church kids, that day in the woods, when I thought I was all by myself, I felt so scared. But the moment I realized I wasn't alone, all that fear disappeared. The worry went away. Confidence and peace filled my heart. And that is the way that God is going to help you live. Because the next time you feel alone, the next time you feel like everything's going wrong, just like it did for Naomi, stop and remember, Jesus is always